Episode 6, The Fallout. This podcast reflects personal memories, interpretations, and opinions. All individuals mentioned are entitled to the presumption of innocence. While every effort has been made to tell the story truthfully and factually, some details may be subjective or based on personal recollection. Listeners should approach the content as a personal narrative, not a formal or factual record. Welcome back to the Spencer Files. July 2018 started on a very difficult note, but August said, "Hold my beer." On August 19th, 2018, my cousin Jared posted this on Facebook. Quote, "Family is an interesting thing at its core. Truly, we pick and claim family based on blood and relationships. Yet sometimes we build our own family because of circumstance. This last week, I found my family again and learned more about those who were once my family. Today I stand as a Spencer, but tolerate no Leclerc further. Sorry to be blunt and direct, but based on actions, I see no reason to sugarcoat. Happy birthday to my aunt. Goodbye to a portion of what once was blood. I make this choice easily, as it is not like my life changes much by this choice to never talk to you again. You haven't spoken to me in easily 20 years. End quote. This came completely out of left field. I suppose that last sentence might be somewhat true. It had been a long time. But let's be honest, the phone works both ways. He hadn't tried to reach out to me either, which made his public attack even more baffling. Why now? Why suddenly take aim at me, or specifically the Leclerc side of the family? He wrote, "Based on actions, I see no reason to sugarcoat." But what actions? He didn't elaborate. Then there's the line, "Happy birthday to my aunt. Goodbye to a portion of what once was blood." That part gave it away. This was clearly about Melissa, since it was her birthday. Melissa even commented on the post, quote, "Thank you for the birthday wishes. Love you, Jared." End quote. That was it. No questioning the weird tone? No confusion or concern about why he'd post something so aggressive? Because she knew. It was calculated. Then I saw my grandfather share the post, and then my grandmother. What is happening? Is this some sort of coordinated revolt against me? My mom privately messaged Jared to see how his father, Scott, her brother, was doing. Jared replied, quote, "I'm the only one who did anything. Thus, I am his only family. I am done with games. He isn't your brother. He is your victim. So enough, and leave me alone." My mom simply replied, "That's a strange response." To which Jared answered, "Please do not contact me again. There are no ties or bonds here. I owe you nothing." After hearing this, I wasn't about to stay quiet, so I messaged Jared myself. "So your dad is my mom's victim? You want to enlighten me how that is possible?" He didn't respond for a while, so I followed up with, "That's what I thought." Eventually, he replied, "Don't bother trying to understand. Please do not contact me again. Anything else will be viewed as an active threat." That was one of the dumbest things I had ever read, so yeah, I snapped a little. I replied, "LOL, that's hilarious. OMG, that's the funniest thing I have read all night. You have no idea what an active threat is." He came back with, "Did you need anything besides the active harassment? I did not start this conversation and asked to be left alone. I did the same with your mother. I'm sorry my opinion offends, but again, I ask to be left alone." So I replied, "None of that constitutes harassment. Your opinion doesn't offend. It doesn't make sense at all, or matter really. She was just trying to help your dad, but no worries, you're gone." He wrote back, "It's been nearly 20 years. Yes, it does. Just keep me in that same place. Nothing changes and you keep going. I expect nothing and owe nothing." To which I said, "Keep my name out of your mouth and you will stay in the same place." Jared ended it with, "Wonderful. I'm glad we can come to an accord. Be safe." And that was it. We didn't talk again for about a year. But when we did, things shifted big time. Great for me, Not so much for Melissa or Darren. August 31st, 2018. I got a call that Chet potentially had a stroke and was on his way to Los Robles Hospital. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. I didn't know if we were about to lose Pa, and everything happening around at that time already felt so strange. I rushed to Los Robles Hospital to be with him. When I arrived, he was about to go in an MRI. Chet hates MRIs, and I stayed with him as long as I possibly could. He never went into that MRI tube, but I ended up sitting by his side for 12 hours that day before I had to leave to be home with Anna and the boys. My Uncle Mark took the next shift and stayed with him the following day, September 1st. I posted this update on Facebook. Quote, "Update on my grandpa. The doctor at this point says, based on the tests they have done so far, that he did not have a stroke. I sat next to him in the hospital yesterday for about 12 hours with my Uncle Mark as he went through tests and observations. My Aunt Wendy stayed with my grandma. The good news is that luckily there is no signs of any damage from whatever happened, and he was in good spirits all day and late into the night, even though he didn't want to be there. They are doing more tests today. Hopefully they figure out what happened and he can go home." End quote. This is where things start to get strange. My grandmother replied, "His doctor said he had a TIA. Will need some therapy. Thank you all for your prayers." So I responded, quote, "I didn't know he had the MRI yet because I know he hadn't when I posted this. Thank you for the update. They seemed to be pleased with the tests last night that there were no visible effects, so hopefully the therapy isn't too long, as I know he hates being away from you." End quote. That's when things really start to get weird. Shortly after, my grandmother texted me, quote, "Did not appreciate you saying he was fine. The doctor said he had a TIA." End quote. So I replied to her, "What? I wasn't saying he was fine. I was stating what they said yesterday after being there with him all day. They said they didn't see anything on any of the tests. They were waiting to see what came from the MRI today." Shortly after that, I got an update, so I posted this update on Facebook. Update on the update. MRI was negative. More to come, or not, I guess. But that was the good news I was waiting for. And later I posted a third update. Quote, "Okay, update 3. My grandpa just stopped by my house to see me and Anna, so apparently he's out of the hospital. I'm sure he's thrilled. He seems to be in good health, and like I said, the MRI was negative, so no damage from the possible TIA. I only say possible because apparently they are hard to diagnose, especially when they don't leave any damage, but something happened to him. My grandpa is so strong and sharp and amazing. My heart is full. My boys loved seeing him. Thank you, Mark, for taking care of him and taking him home. And thank you, Wendy, for taking care of my Grammy." End quote. That's when my grandmother hit me with this. Quote, "It's nice to see you being friends with your pa again after all the grief you have put him through." End quote. That stung. I didn't understand why she was turning on me, so I replied, quote, "We never stopped being friends. Someone clearly lied to him, and you. As far as the grief, I don't think it was me. In fact, I know it wasn't. Don't worry, Grammy. Our face-to-face meeting we are having soon will allow you to see the truth. Hopefully the lies will stop spreading as well. Our family seems to have misinformation that will be cleared. I love you. It's hard to be our normal friends that we have always been when people are trying to keep me from him." End quote. As the family conflict escalated online, Anna spoke up, expressing how exhausting the situation had become and how badly she hoped the real source of the drama would eventually be exposed. My grandmother responded coldly, insisting she already knew the truth, which only deepened the confusion and frustration. Things got more intense when my grandmother began calling me repeatedly, refusing to stop even after I asked her to, despite it being late and my kids needing to sleep. Then my cousin Amanda, Melissa's daughter, chimed in, defending my grandmother and suggesting I should have handled things privately. On the surface, that seems like a fair suggestion, but Was I actually the one causing this? Altogether, the back and forth ballooned into nearly 40 comments, many of them deeply hurtful, especially from people I never thought would turn against me. I felt blindsided, heartbroken, and more isolated than ever. People could see my grandfather was being manipulated, but somehow I was being cast as the villain. Some family members reached out to me privately, confused and concerned by what they were seeing unfold. They didn't buy the story being pushed online. They knew that there had to be more to it, and they were right. The full truth wasn't ready to come out yet, but it would, very soon. More posts kept popping up. One from Melissa, making the situation sound way worse than it really was. Then my grandmother posted, thanking Amanda for calling 911 from Boston, where she was away at college. Apparently, no one else in Chet's house that day called 911, and Amanda made the call from across the country. You'd think that would raise some eyebrows. Instead, she was treated like a hero. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not grateful for her action, but seriously, if things were that serious, why didn't anyone in the house make that call? September 12th, 2018. That day, my Uncle Scott, Jared's father, made a heartbreaking post on Facebook. He said that he had been illegally evicted even though he didn't owe anything. Everything he owned was locked away, and without the $1,500 he needed to hire movers, he'd lose it all by midnight the next day. Even worse, he was disabled and facing homelessness by Friday. He wrote that his health wouldn't survive living outdoors, and though he'd lived a full life and had amazing children, he recognized the situation was beyond his ability to fix. He said it was devastating that just $1,500 could save him, but it was completely out of reach. What really stung was that he said our family either couldn't or wouldn't help him. So in his words, this is apparently it. He thanked everyone, said he'd tried his best, but it wasn't good enough. It was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever read from a family member. In response, Jared created and shared a GoFundMe for his dad, writing this on the GoFundMe, quote, "My father was illegally evicted in New York. At this point, no one in the family will help him, and I don't have all the funds needed to get him moved. Anything would help at this point. Otherwise, he will be homeless and most likely will quickly pass away." This is what Jared was talking about when he said that he was the only one that did anything for his dad. I later found out that both Jared and Scott had been told my grandparents couldn't help them financially because I had supposedly stole all of their money. And, no surprise here, that rumor came straight from Melissa. That's what fueled Jared's Facebook post, and why Melissa didn't seem the least bit surprised by it, but that's okay. About a year later, that lie comes back to her, hard. My sister was in communication with Melissa about Scott, and she told my sister that she didn't believe that Scott was getting evicted and was just trying to get money. He did, in fact, get evicted. This was partly as a result, from what I was told, because Darren wasn't allowing Chet to help his son Scott anymore. September 22nd, 2018. My sister had had enough. She posted in one of our family Facebook groups and basically said, "No more secrets, no more gossip. This ends now." She had reached out to our Aunt Melissa, who told her that our grandfather, Chet, was no longer legally accountable for his actions. That was a big claim, so my sister asked who Pa's legal guardian was, and Melissa said she didn't know. Then she dropped another bomb. She told my sister that there was proof that I had done something illegal, but when my sister asked what it was, Melissa refused to tell her. She said that she didn't trust her. So my sister went straight to the source, our grandmother. She asked her the same two questions. Who is Chet's legal guardian? What is the proof if EJ did something illegal? She got the same story, no real answers, just vague claims about the title of my house, which made no sense, especially since Chet and Lois are both on the title of our house. My sister even looked it up herself, confirmed it, posted copies of it online. Their investments were secure, so why the drama? What was actually illegal here? Then it got even weirder. Grammy said that my mom had called the sheriff and reported something anonymously, but my mom was on a cruise ship at that time, had been for 2 weeks. So how does an anonymous tip come with a name? None of it was adding up. Bottom line, if I had actually done something illegal, which I hadn't, why couldn't anyone show proof or just say what it was? If Pa was truly unable to make decisions, why did they say he didn't have a guardian? And if Chet did have a guardian, why wasn't there a court proceeding as required by law? My sister laid it all out. She was trying to get the truth. And honestly, that post opened the floodgates. Someone had clearly pushed my sister too far. She posted screenshots of conversations, and sure enough, Melissa had told her that Chet had plaque on his brain and was no longer legally responsible for his own actions. My sister even posted texts from Chet himself saying that the sheriff had come by, but that since EJ hadn't broken the law, there was no victim, no crime. Strangely, my grandmother had texted my sister saying that they had actually just made the sheriff go away. Not exactly the kind of response she was going to accept. And how did my bedridden grandmother do that exactly? Worse, it got weirder. Messages were suddenly being sent to my sister, allegedly from Chet, but they didn't sound like him at all. One claimed that what she was doing by posting all this online was defamation, and that she was tarnishing his name. She was posting what everyone else was saying, and she was just trying to clear it up. She pointed out that what she was doing was the exact opposite, trying to help him. Still, she wasn't giving up. She questioned everything she was told, especially about this vague claim that they had made the sheriff go away. She kept asking if my grandfather was okay and why no one was being direct. Then, someone slipped up. A message appeared on Facebook from Chet's account, replying to her post and saying, quote, "He's fine. You seem to be having a meltdown," end quote. My sister didn't miss a beat. She clapped back, quote, "Next time when you post as Chet, say, I am fine. When you say he is fine, it's pretty obvious Pa isn't writing it. You know what I mean?" End quote. Others jump in on this as well, saying, rule number 1, when impersonating someone, speak in the first person. Even my cousin Jared popped in and said, "What the heck?" Boom, gotcha. Whoever was behind the curtain messed up, big time. Then, odd timing, Darren jumped in. He posted on my sister's thread, quote, "Tiffany, I'm posting this message because your grandfather, Chet Spencer, asked me to do this on his behalf. First, the questions you seem to believe you are entitled to ask and have answered are personal matters for your grandparents. They are perfectly willing to talk with you, in person or by phone, but they may not answer all of your questions since you are asking some very personal questions. As you know, your grandfather had a long distinguished career in law enforcement, and he is deeply hurt that you have chosen to sully his reputation. Rather than addressing all of your misstatements and incorrect information, Chet is asking that you stop using social media platforms to discuss his personal matter. Again, call him if you'd like to discuss it again, but understand, if you are asking them questions that really aren't your business, you may not get answers." End quote. At this time, it was becoming more obvious. Darren wasn't just involved, he was orchestrating things. Someone was actively using my grandfather's accounts online, and Darren might be involved. And the more they tried to silence us, the more obvious it became that something was very wrong. What started as me on the defense was clear that I needed to shift. I need to save my grandfather. September 24th, 2018. My grandmother posted a video of Chet driving his boat on Bass Lake. He had never driven that boat before, not once. Her caption read, "Happy Papa drove his boat." Chet also sent me the video himself, and later I learned that Darren was the one who had taken him up to Bass Lake, just the two of them. Lately, Darren had been making a noticeable effort to spend more one-on-one time with Chet. Around the same time, Melissa and Tiffany were talking frequently. My sister was on a mission to figure out exactly what was going on. Honestly, at this point, everything was so overwhelming, I felt like I was just going to snap. And I guess I kind of did. I ended up having a stroke that day. I was at work talking to 3 employees when another team member came over. He looked me straight in the eyes and said that I needed to get to the hospital right now. His tone was firm and urgent. I didn't understand why he was being so serious, but I could tell something was off. Later, I found out that I had been trying to tell my coworkers where I had wanted to go for lunch, but the words coming out of my mouth were total gibberish. That same employee, who ironically had just suffered a stroke himself a few weeks earlier, offered to drive me. I declined, but mostly because, due to the stroke, he lost much of his vision and probably shouldn't have been driving. So, like an idiot, I drove myself. Not to the hospital, though. I thought that was too extreme. Instead, I drove to an urgent care nearby. When I got there and began explaining what I thought was going on, the doctor cut me off and said, "Oh, like you're having a stroke." He apparently recognized the signs instantly. He told me that he'd previously worked in the stroke ward at the Los Robles Hospital and said he'd alert them that I was on my way. Still, not grasping the severity of the situation, I got back in my car and drove myself again. Just 2 miles, but clearly I wasn't thinking straight. When I arrived at the hospital, I was immediately rushed in by a team of nurses and doctors. Fortunately, my MRI came back clear, but I had suffered a stroke in my left eye. I spent the next 7 days in the hospital. Fortunately, I didn't suffer any permanent vision loss. In the beginning, I experienced flashes of light in my left eye, and I still have some floaters that linger to this day. But it could have been so much worse. I was 35 years old, and I was in the stroke ward with people in their 80s. It can happen to anyone, it's just not likely. As much as I missed my boys, I didn't want them to see me like that. I didn't want to scare them or have this memory connected to a favorite holiday, so I waited until I was discharged on Halloween to see them again. That night, I made sure to take them trick-or-treating no matter what. It had been 1 year since we closed escrow on the new house, and I wasn't going to miss that memory. It was so good to be home, back with my family, where I felt safe. Next time on the Spencer Files, a mass shooting in our quiet town, followed almost immediately by one of California's most destructive fires, the death of a matriarch, and more family drama exposed on Facebook.